Hi, my name is Jacquelynn. I'm a photographer here in Tucson, Arizona, and recently I was asked to teach an iPhone photography course to an RV park community. And as part of that community course, I met a man named Lawrence J. Allen, who goes by Larry. I learned that Larry was a Vietnam War veteran, and he told me a little bit of his story. And what that sparked for me was a thought process of there are so many war veterans out there of many wars, Vietnam and wars that we're even still fighting today. And those veterans all have stories. And those stories are often lost to time if not told in a place where the public can see them. Sure, we've seen documentaries and we've seen videos and we've heard people tell their story, but I wanted to tell Larry's story. It's not particularly gruesome or particularly ugly, but it's one man's story. He came back from Vietnam after 21 months and he lived an entire other life. But this part has stuck with him, and I thought, why not share it in a way that the world can hear? I will say that Larry is gravely ill. I did not know that when I endeavored to do this, but now it makes his story all that more poignant. With the help of my husband and Thunder Sky Video, we were able to capture some of Larry's story and put it to video in a way that he can share with his family and friends. And the reason why I think it's important to talk about today is I've recently learned that March 29th is National Vietnam War Veterans Day. I didn't know that that was something that was a thing, but it recently came into my email and I thought, how perfect. Because today I also was able to share this video with him for the first time so that he can share it, like I said, with his family and his friends. So Larry, thank you for your service, and thank you all veterans for your service. And I hope that this one man's story is just one that doesn't get lost to memory or dusty history books, and instead goes on to live long after he does. Thank you.
In junior high and high school, I planned to join the Navy and be an underwater demolition person.
Oh, wow.
Which by the time I got there had morphed into the SEALs.
I gotcha.
But I became disenchanted with thinking that way. And so I got drafted into the Army. And, so I went to Vietnam as a private first class and came home as a Sergeant E5. And I commanded the Fire Direction Center for about 3 months before I came home. I was in the service for 21 months, and I was in the Army. And when I came home from Vietnam, I was a sergeant. And the sergeant major of my new battalion, first thing he said to me almost was that he didn't like sergeants that got their rank in Vietnam. They didn't earn it. So I decided then and there I wasn't going to re-up as I was thinking of doing. And I got out 3 months early because to go back to school. So I went to electronics school in Chicago. When I graduated from there, I went to work for the Department of Energy. I worked there for 39 years. It wasn't the highest paying jobs around, but the benefits were great. I actually started in basic training, I have a few pictures that I took before that, but I'm taking pictures of the guys doing things in the barracks and stuff at night. Had this little Brownie Starmite camera, 126 film. Took the camera with me when I got to Vietnam. I used that for a month or two. The Flying PX came out to the Firebase one day and they had a Yashica rangefinder for sale for $35. I bought that and used that, took slides for the rest of the time I was there. I took 1,200 pictures while I was there. I was always trying to get pictures of the helicopters coming in formation that would look really cool, and I never really, to my thinking, succeeded. Some of them are pretty good. I took a lot of pictures that I took and some that other people took and put them in a PowerPoint. For a reunion. We have a reunion every 2 years. The way we operated was we would build a fire base. And there's a couple of pictures of building fire bases in here. And a fire base kit is enough lumber to build an artillery FTC, a battalion tactical operations center, and two artillery FTCs, a mortar FTC, and the battalion headquarters. Tons of concertina wire. That's this brown stuff.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
There's 3 strands of triple concertina wire around and there's claymore mines spread through that, and you have fugas, which is really napalm in a 55-gallon drum with a pound of C4 underneath it. It explodes out of the ground and makes a big footprint, and you don't want to be in that footprint.
I'm sure not.
As it sticks to you while it burns. And then about 1 million sandbags. 3 layers of sandbags will stop an 82 millimeter mortar round.
Oh my gosh.
But it won't stop a 107 millimeter rocket. On the right.
Is that you?
That's me.
My goodness. Look at how young you were.
Yep. That's me too. The other guy lives in the western half of Illinois.
Huh.
We'd stay someplace about 2 months. Okay. Longest we ever stayed in one place was 3. Okay. November through January. When I got there, we were up north, up around Way and north of Way. A place called Camp Evans was a division base camp, and it was probably 30 miles from the DMZ. Okay. It was one of the gun crews, plus the guy on the left worked for me. Jerry Vance from West Virginia. He had West by God, Virginia written on his helmet. He lives outside of Tucson. Outside of Phoenix, I should say. He's a Texan. He was our medic. He was in the recon platoon. Can't remember his name. 1st Cavalry Division was an air mobile. Our horses were helicopters. And we had all our own helicopters. We didn't have to depend on anybody else. The mission was to jump in someplace in the middle of nowhere and operate from there. We would operate for 2 weeks out in the field, and then come back for rest and rearm. While another company would go out to replace us. And that was sort of a ongoing rotation. I used to play tag with them.
Really?
Yeah. His name is Ray Clark. The sergeant there is Preston Willie. He was a platoon sergeant. Virginia man. He died cancer about 3-4 years ago.
The shaving cream?
Yep. I was involved in that too. I'm running between 2 bunkers, and someone had strung commo wire across right about this high, and it's black and very thin, and my feet ended up higher than my head. Most battalions in the Army, the reconnaissance platoon and the space defense mortar platoon are part of headquarters company. And they, as an experiment, they made an E company in our battalion. So I got there late August, reported to E company, and well, you got this training, this 3 or 4 day training thing you got to go through, and part of it was we're sending you out in the field. You're going out and you're within border range of, well, it turns out we're actually inside the perimeter of the Camp Evans. It just didn't look like it. And we went out there after dark and dug foxholes and all that sort of stuff. And I was really lucky in Vietnam. I was in a very good battalion. There were 125 Medals of Honor awarded in the Vietnam War. 25 of them went to the 1st Cavalry Division, and 4 of those went to the 5th and the 7th. And only 1 person survived earning it.
Wow.
2 of the other 3 jumped on grenades and saved their buddies by jumping on grenades.
Oh,
the 4th guy was, he died in a prison camp.
my goodness.
And the other people in the prison camp put him in for another Medal of Honor. Unfortunately, one's the limit. Yours truly.
Oh, is that you? Huh.
Yeah, that's me too.
Wow.
I got heat stroke one day. It's 100 degrees and 100% humidity. He died a year ago, but he was living in Oklahoma. Not Oklahoma. Yeah, Oklahoma, Norman, Oklahoma. Those are rubber trees. You harvest rubber the same way you harvest maple syrup.
Is that right?
They have one of those over at the Air and Space Museum.
Oh, do they?
They're very smooth too. It doesn't shake like most helicopters do. They could actually do medical work. They have a medical pod that fits in between the legs. For years I was 30% disabled with PTSD. And it's not as bad as some people. I mean, I don't get up and get found in a ditch hiding from the NBA. I do have dreams and I do think about it. My good friend got killed. He was the only guy in our platoon who got killed while I was there.
Wow.
We were on a Firebase called LZ Joe in the middle of a rubber plantation. And they hit 6 or 7 fire bases with a lot of incoming mortar and rocket fire one night. And ours was one of them. And sort of as it was getting dark, one of our observation posts called in, so they had a platoon strength group of gooks, as they were called. And I don't call them that anymore, but walking up on their position, and the battalion commander says, "No, you got to stay there." And it got to the point where you communicated by clicking the radio to break squelch. You could hear us. Finally heard 3 or 4 shots, and on the radio it says, "We're coming in." The hell with the battalion commander. And next morning they found an NVA soldier laying on his radio. We weren't real smart that night. We normally slept on the roof of a bunker because it was cooler. And sometime late at night, after midnight, we started getting incoming rounds, and I rolled off on one side and went in the bunker to do my job, and he rolled off the other side and died.
Oh my gosh.
I had a mortar round land a couple of feet in front of his face. So that was hard.
Yeah.
We had our nights too. There was a night where we got a fire mission. We had a battalion of NVA in the open, and we put 10 rounds on them in a very short time, and the estimated body count was 50.
Wow.
So they were assembling to do something,
Yeah.
and we broke that up, which I feel good about. Being a little naive then, I thought we were fighting for the freedom of the South Vietnamese people, because if they had an election, the North Vietnamese had more population than the South, then they didn't have a real choice what they were going to vote for. Ho is not a kind man. He was right. He said, "We'll lose 10 for their 1, and they will tire of the war first." And we did. I don't know if it was a righteous war or not. I know I did the best I could do, and I felt like I was serving my country.
Yeah.
And country called, and I answered.